Summer on the Lankey. This programme features our cycle ride on the length of the Lancaster Canal and the making of our Northern Reaches documentary on the quietest section of this picturesque waterway. The making of the Northern Reaches documentary took many hours of filming, many days spent living among the birds and many weeks of editing afterwards. The water-filled section of this canal begins at Stainton and I based myself there for a lot of the time. Nights were spent rolled up in a sleeping bag in the back of my combo van, and this was a view from my window every morning. My van was parked under the bridge on the infilled section of the canal which stretches another 7 miles up to Kendal. Walk a little way up the path towards Kendal and you stumble upon the brooding mouth of Lancaster Tunnel. Partially hidden in the undergrowth, this disused tunnel is 378 yards long and one can just see the light of the other entrance in the distance. The barge was walked through the tunnel by men lying on their back while the horses were led up a special path which takes them over the hill to the other side. The weather was kind, and mine was an open-air kitchen on Stainton Bridge most mornings. A whistling kettle at 6 AM on such a sunny morning is a welcome sound, while my cameras are on heron watch over the weedy basin. Many hours were spent hidden in the reeds on heron watch. These elusive birds are very wary. Filming the carp feeding among the lily pads was very difficult as I had to predict where one would surface next and aim the lens in that spot. Eventually I got lucky. Due to the diversity of species in Weedy Basin, filming was profitable for me and I was sorry to leave and move on. Bicycle was the best method of getting around and ours were laden with everything we would need for the next few days. The sun-dappled towpaths were a joy to ride along, but the Lancaster Canal is such a diverse waterway that we were compelled to stop many times just to enjoy the view, and sometimes for a refreshing drink. On this trip we were camping along the way and carried our tent on one of the bikes. It was during one of these stops that we met a remarkable lady who has remained in our thoughts all through the year. This lovely swan and her babies spent quite some time with us, but her mate and the father of her cygnets was conspicuous in his absence. Further down the bank, a pile of white feathers scattered around hinted at a recent tragedy, and as swan's mate for life we marvelled at her ability to continue despite her grief. Over the summer we visited her a few times and she always had her 6 babies in tow. She was such a proud mother and because of this we named her Widow Swanky. Widow Swanky lives in an area called Crooklands, and here we find the only motorised boat in the Northern Reaches. The Water Witch is owned by the Lancaster Canal Trust and runs short trips every Sunday throughout the summer. Also living in the Crooklands area was a solitary tufted duck, obviously an escapee from someone's collection. Some time was spent at Farleton Fell as several species of birds lived in the area, including a buzzard which we were unable to film. It was near here the kidnapping took place, and I struck up a conversation with a lady out walking her dog. It was she who told me of the territorial skirmishes which had resulted in 4 cygnets going off with the wrong set of parents. The pair of swans who were left with just one baby became very wary overnight. They would not approach us on our next visit and kept their precious remaining cygnet a safe distance. Coot family life can be fascinating, and we kept a close eye on this incubating female. We were lucky enough to be filming on hatching day. The chicks' father was dedicated to providing their first meal, and I was so pleased with this little family. They have endured so much with their last nest and eggs destroyed. This was their second attempt, and it proved to be successful. Chewitfield marks the end of the northern reaches and the start of the boat-navigable section of the canal, which winds its way south through Lancaster and finishes at Preston. It was a hot day, and there is a welcome pub at Chewitfield, so we shamelessly dumped our bikes and drank ice-cold lager to put us on for the next stage of the journey. Leaving Chewitfield, the scenery changes, and you are likely to meet boats up and down the canal, which can be a disturbance if you wish to watch the wildlife. A mile or 2 out of Chewitfield we found this goosander who's been living with a flock of mallards for 2 or 3 years. He came quite close and gave us a good view. Ducklings are everywhere, and we caught this heron trying to evade our cameras. The scenery is just as lovely, but it is only 3 miles from Chewitfield before you go under the M6 motorway and find yourself on the outskirts of Carnforth. The canal turn pours a good lager, so we stopped for more refreshment before heading south to Hest Bank. From here on, the towpath makes easy riding, and before long we are pulling into Hest Bank. Here we came off the canal and headed for Red Bank Farm on Morecambe Bay, where we planned to camp for the night. As befitting a beautiful day, the sunset was fantastic. On our way again the next morning we passed more ducklings and very soon reached the outskirts of Lancaster and the superb Loon Aqueduct. One lucky heron has the best of both worlds. He can also choose to fish in the River Loon below. Leaving Lancaster behind, we head south towards Preston and were soon back in the countryside again. We reached the new Ribble Link, which connects this canal to the Leeds and Liverpool. Soon the towpath peters out and the going is tough. It is so hot the cows are lingering in the water. Any patch of shade is welcomed and we cool off as we photograph this boat. The sun was relentless as we cycled from one bridge to another, stopping for a rest and a cool drink before heading for the next bridge further on. On and on we continued in the blazing sun, heading south. In some places there was hardly a towpath and the riding was tough. Eventually we reached a decent cycle track and soon we arrived at the basin in Preston. This was the end of our journey. In 2 days we cycled a total of 54 miles, taken hundreds of photos and were very tired, but we plan to return next summer and catch up with a few of our wildlife friends.